Comic Guy here with another Comicsgate unboxing, and today we have an envelope, a plain, simple, white envelope that says "Do not bend," because apparently no efforts were made to make sure that the contents could not be bent. Looking at the interior, I can see that this is from someone by the name of Joe Spicer in Greenfield, Wisconsin. So let's go ahead, let's open up this bad boy, and let's see what's inside, shall we? We're gonna pull this open. Since we have a little line, we don't need to pull out a razor blade. And there we go. It is Blood Count. Okay. So Blood Count actually is a comic book about a vampire that wakes up, and after he wakes up, decides to become a superhero after killing all the superheroes. So this is kind of an interesting take on the anti-hero storyline. We've got a little postcard here about the character and Star-Crossed comic, and I'm not sure. I've seen this before someplace else. I can't remember what it's from, but I have seen it someplace else. In either case, obviously the packaging isn't going to get the best of reviews because it only came in a simple envelope with no extra protection, but at least the contents did come bagged and boarded, and it does not appear that the content itself has been damaged. So I'm going to go ahead and read this comic book, come back, and give you a review. So hopefully the content will overshadow the poor packaging. Alrighty, so I went ahead and I looked through the book, and I've got to say, I was quite surprised. This is actually a pretty good little read. I mean, the packaging is terrible. I mean, it's just an envelope, but when I went into Indiegogo and checked out what I paid for this book, because I had completely forgotten, I only paid $10 for the book itself, and shipping and handling was only $5. The book is finished and it's in demand, so you can literally go to Indiegogo, look up Blood Count, order it today, and you'll have it in a week or two. So that was quite a surprise for me. So you're not paying a lot of money as far as packaging is concerned, which is why it comes in a normal envelope. Still, the packaging is not a Gemini mailer. It does not guarantee the quality of your book when it arrives. It is prone to damage. At least somebody literally, and I do mean literally, wrote on the front of the package, "Do not bend." So at least there was that. There was some care put into making sure that the contents would not be damaged. But regardless, the packaging is still only going to get 2 out of 5 stars. This brings us to the cover art, and the cover art is consistent with a normal comic book that you would get out in the world today. You see Count Blood, I guess, sitting on something. Like, I can't tell if he's on a chair, if he's floating, or what. He may just be sitting on a piece of debris, but he's holding up the head of a superhero that he killed with his big old smile on his face. And I gotta say, the cover of this comic book, if nothing else, it is cute. I do like the cover of this book. There's 2 different covers to choose from on Indiegogo. If you order it, you can get cover A or cover B. This is the cover that I want. Opening up the book, that does give us a little bit something different. First off, it's good quality paper. This isn't newsprint. This is something better than that. And the coloring does look good. The coloring isn't going crazy, but it tells the story effectively on every single page. It looks good. It actually has really interesting character designs, and it looks like a really fun little book. And as it turns out, it was a fun little book. And as plainly evident from what you can see as far as the interior artwork is concerned, it is consistent with the cover artwork. So the cover artwork itself, I'm going to actually give 3 out of 5 stars. This is consistent with the cover that you would get on any comic book in the industry today. The physical quality of the actual comic book itself is also on par with anything that you're going to get from Marvel or from DC. So that is consistent with any comic book that you would get in the industry today. The interior artwork is good. I mean, Again, look at that. This is really good looking artwork. There's nothing skimped here. This is professional quality work across the board. And I'm going to actually give the artwork in this 3 out of 5 stars. It's not the best I've ever seen. It's not the worst. It is industry standard artwork. In some cases, I actually might say it's a little bit better, but it's not better than industry standards in enough places in order to bump the score up any higher. The coloring does look good. Like I said, they don't go crazy with it, but the coloring actually is consistently good throughout the entire book. It complements the kind of story being told. I liked it. This was good. This was really, really fun as far as that's concerned. So I'm going to give the coloring on this book a 3 out of 5 stars because, again, it's consistent with what you would expect in a comic book in the industry today. I must admit, looking over the book, the lettering does stumble in some places, like right here on this page with the news report. Because it is trying to be centered, but constantly is changing the positioning of each sentence, it makes it very easy to lose your place as you're reading, and I actually lost my place here several times. Most of the lettering is good. Most of the lettering is consistent with what you would get in a comic book, but there are some rough patches. But the lettering does overall look good, and the styling of the lettering and the dialogue balloons also looks good. The lettering would have gotten a higher score if a little bit more care had been put into the positioning of the text on the page. However, some of the more dynamic aspects of the balloon work used for the lettering compensate for that, giving us an overall lettering score of 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, an attempt was made to make this a little bit better than industry standards, but it is clear to me that whoever is doing the lettering was just typing this out, and they were using something like, I don't know, Microsoft Comic Sans. And when it came to structuring the lettering in some of the balloons, stumbled a little bit. And that actually brings us to the writing and the story. This is definitely a comic book that is built for comedy. I mean, it's not full on. I mean, we're talking more like Evil Dead 2 as far as the comedy is concerned. So it's fun, it's interesting, it's compelling. You got some fun things going on. This vampire wakes up in the middle of a battle between a superhero and a supervillain, and he finds out that he can eat the superhero and gain his powers. I mean, and look at the superhero. Look at this. The guy is literally turned into a skeleton when the vampire eats them. And when this guy tries to actually kill the vampire because he absorbed the power, hitting him with a wooden stake isn't going to work anymore. And when he gets out into the world, because he's been asleep for centuries, he's just marveling at everything. He's got people coming up wanting his photograph because they think that he's dressed up like a classic Universal Studios monster. It's hilarious. This is a really fun way of introducing you to the main character, the events going on in the world. I mean, again, this is like a normal size comic book, a floppy that you would get in the store, but it does a really effective job at introducing you to the main character, introducing you to the world, introducing you to the idea of what's going on, and letting you know that bigger events are going to happen. Now, it does move quickly. It is rushed throughout the entire book. They cram a lot of story and plot points into one single book. But it's clear to me that whoever actually put this together, narratively speaking, knew exactly what they were doing because it's structured almost flawlessly. And as we've discussed in the past, if you can structure your book well, even if you have failings in your story, structuring it properly can still give you a fun and entertaining reading experience. And as such, I'm actually going to give the writing on this book a 3 out of 5 stars. This was a fun, interesting comic book with an interesting premise, interesting ideas at play, and done incredibly well. So yeah, I wish that we could get more books like this. This is a solid book through and through. The only place where we really have any stumbling blocks is the packaging. The packaging is really the only part of this book that is below industry standards for a book coming out of Comicsgate. But the writing, the lettering, the coloring, the interior art, the cover art, the quality of the book itself, All of these are average for the comic book industry, which yields a score of 2.83 out of 5 stars. That's pretty close to a 3, so it's an average comic book. Like I said, the book itself is a 3 out of 5 stars. It's just the packaging alone that drives this thing down. And you can get this pretty cheap as a digital copy, and considering that you're only being asked to pay $5 for shipping and handling, that does make it a pretty economic deal. And you can go over to Indiegogo right now, order this thing in demand, and it'll be at your home in a few days. The only thing that I would really recommend to creator and writer Johnny Hinkle and his team, Dominic Osrin on lines, Raciel Avila Silva on colors, Jimmy Greenhalgh on letters, with edits done by Chuck Pinu, is that you clearly note on your campaign what type of envelope that this is going to be coming in. You've got to let people know this is not coming in a Gemini mailer, it's coming in a standard envelope, and you need to make that a selling point. You need to say, hey, we're going to send this to you in a standard envelope in order to try to keep costs down, but we promise that every single book is going to be bagged and boarded. If that was like in its own little section clearly marked out that you could read, because if it's on there, I didn't see it. But if it was actually sectioned out so that you knew that going in, and thus you also know that's why you're saving money on shipping and handling, that would be a nice thing to include on the campaign. Other than that, yeah, this is a 3 out of 5 book, getting a 2.83 due to packaging, and I actually would recommend this book. I think this is the beginning of a wonderful storyline. I think this is an interesting comic book, and I think that this is something I actually would have picked up at my local comic book store if I ever went into the local comic book store anymore. So yeah, definitely go ahead and check out Blood Count. I think it was a good book, and I think that you would really like it. With that being said, I hope that you thumb up the video, like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to follow me on social media. I really appreciate your support, and as we get more followers, we will increase the production values of this little show, and I really hope to see you next time for another video.